Hi there, Professor Joe Omani here, Professor of Consulting at Cardiff University and advisor to the consulting industry. Now, three things have happened recently that I thought you might be interested in. In fact, let's summarise what I'm going to be talking about. Number one, I want you to do bad work. Number two, I want you to empty your heads. So let me explain. So number one, I've been reading Greg Alexander's new book, The Founder Bottleneck, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, you can't get it in the UK. You can only get it if you can get it in the UK if you're a member of his network, which is Collective 54, which I would very much recommend checking out if you're a boutique owner or founder or leader. The second thing I've been doing is meeting with some of my larger clients, sort of from the 50 to 100 consultant stage. And what I'd like to talk about is partly the founder bottleneck, but also the importance of delegation as you grow. Because what will typically happen is when you start a consulting firm and you're sort of, getting to 10, 15 people, you're doing great work, you're burning the midnight oil. The founders and leaders will be spending a lot of time reworking, making sure every client need is satisfied and all the rest of it. And this is what the basis of growth is, because you're doing better work than the competition, and sometimes you're doing it cheaper as well. So for the buyers, it's a win-win situation. Now, this is not the basis for sustainable growth. You can't scale that model for lots of reasons. Number one, your consultants will leave if you ask them to do 90-hour days if you're not paying them, 90-hour weeks if you're not paying them McKinsey or Bain rates. Secondly, it's simply unsustainable from an investor perspective because it has key person risk. So if you as the founding team are doing lots of delivery, lots of sales and all the rest of it, you'll get hit by a bus or you'll decide to leave. From a buyer's or investor's perspective, I'm not going anywhere near that company. There's a massive risk to my money if you disappear or get hit by a bus. So really what you want to be doing is we'll talk about what you want to be doing in a second. But so at a high level, this is why delegation and succession planning is absolutely crucial. But if you do delegation without certain intellectual property or systems being in place, it's just going to be a mess. You're going to be getting lots of low quality work from juniors who really don't know what they're doing. So you need to prepare for delegation. So, okay, let's talk about emptying your brain first of all. And what I mean by this is that most leadership teams have a huge amount here that really shouldn't be here. From a buyer's perspective, this is a big risk. What you want to be doing is taking this out, delegating it down the organisation, training people up so that you don't become the bottleneck, but also whatever's in your head is in intellectual property. It's in systems, software, training courses, online videos, help desk, whatever it is, it's codified so that other people have access to it, so that people aren't coming to you all the time asking you, is this okay? Who should I go to for this? What information do we have on this client? Do you have any experience of X? Shouldn't be here, should be elsewhere. It's going to save you a huge amount of time. But also that's true of the people below you as well. Traditionally, middle management and consultancies generally have got a lot of their power from what's in their head. You don't want that. There's a wonderful book called The E-Myth by Graeber, who very clearly describes the importance of not relying on brilliant individuals. Because if you rely on brilliant individuals, you're relying on them, you're building the asset for them, you're not building the asset in the firm. So what you need to be doing is taking the information out of their heads, encouraging them to delegate, them to create intellectual property. And it's an upfront investment in time, but it pays dividends in the longer run. So that when juniors are coming on board, your middle management aren't doing what you were doing, spending all of their time answering questions and all the rest of it. So you want to be delegating. Now, there are lots of reasons for resistance against delegation, but one of them is that if you're delegating to people who aren't experienced and they do bad work or they don't do great work, I want you to get used to this. Your consultancy or your boutique, once it gets to 30, 40, 50 people, can no longer run on the basis of doing work that is 20% better than the competition. That would be wonderful, but if you're delegating, you're necessarily giving work to people who aren't as good at it as you are. Now, the traditional approach to that, which is a trap, is to get senior management to spend all of their time reviewing the work, correcting it, and all the rest of it. Again, you don't want to be doing this. Initially, you want to review the work, you want to give it back to them to get them to make the changes, and then next time, if there's a problem with it, then there's some form of punishment. If they're doing better, there's a reward. So you've got the stick and carrot situation. So you want your most junior people, or at least the level below every level, to be, ideally getting it right first time because they've done the training course, they've done the induction, they've looked at the videos, they've seen examples and all the rest of it. So they're not coming to you. But if they're not achieving that, then you want to have a stick in place. So, okay, this is fine, but next time it's got to be better because otherwise it's going to go down as a mark against you in your appraisal or your bonus or whatever. But if they do get it right, then it's a tick in the box. So it's a tick for their competence that allows them to move up to the next level eventually. So what I'm saying is that all of these skills that you want your juniors to have need to be part of a competence map that you have, 1 page or 10 pages or whatever, that they can clearly see, I need to get good at this in order to work my way up the organisation. So two principles, and that does mean that you're not going to be doing the outstanding, brilliant work that you were doing perhaps when you were a 10-person firm. Now, that doesn't mean that you're doing bad work, but it does mean that you have a development system in place. Because if you're not delegating, then you're not stretching the people at the bottom of the organisation. And this is, this obviously relates to succession planning for everyone in the organisation. So what you want to be doing is thinking, well, if I'm a leader, I can't be responsible for sales, in the organisation. The sales competence needs to be passed down the organisation. So that I, number one, if I'm the founder, I get a very low earnout, ideally 0 years. But secondly, there isn't a key person risk there because I've passed business development competence, I've passed everything that I can do down the organisation, and I focus only on the strategic, innovative, high-value things that I need to do as a founder in terms of setting the direction, scanning the horizon, looking for new opportunities. There's lots and lots of ways. I'll cover this in more detail another time, but there's lots of ways of doing that in this book. But with Greg's permission, I will share some of those with you. Ideally, in fact, I'll try and get Greg in for another podcast so he can tell us himself. Anyway, I hope that's useful. So be prepared to deliver some worse work than you were doing. And number two, be prepared to empty your heads. It's an upfront investment, but it's virtually impossible to scale past the 30 to 40 consultant-sized organisation without taking this seriously. And if you haven't got an HR person to help you do this, you should be thinking about getting one. As you grow, obviously, right up front, you will have a finance person. Then you might get a senior marketing person in, or you might have outsourced that. We'll talk about that another time. But also HR, in terms of the competencies, skills, development plans, appraisals, and all the rest of it. When you are becoming a more professional organisation, you need to start taking all of this a bit more seriously, and it can't be done by partners. When it is done by partners or senior directors who aren't HR experts, it tends to be done badly. Anyway, huge generalisations there. I realise that, it's all going to be different for every organisation, but just some quick thoughts on that book and a couple of client meetings I had recently. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.